Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. We are now seeing why I said that the best thing for DC live action was a reset, to start again. Not the reset they're doing in Flashpoint, but a proper reset where we delete the DC Extended Universe, we delete the DCEU and start again. And you lot were saying to me, no, Mick, that's wrong, you're wrong. There's no issue here. Restore the Snyderverse, don't restore the Snyderverse. And now with the leaked Henry Cavill Superman cameo in Black Adam, the same debates are firing on Twitter, on social media in general. And this is why I said, and this is why it turns out that I was right, that the best thing for DC would be to start again. Because it's very interesting, because we're having this whole debate now that we've seen what Henry Cavill's wearing in that post-credit scene. It isn't a black Superman costume. Now, you're going to disagree with this, some of you. It's the Justice League Superman costume. That's what it looks like. It may not be the identical costume, but it looks more like that than the one we saw in Man of Steel, as far as I'm concerned. I could be wrong. I'm not one for detail. Comment down below. Let me know. He's wearing the red and blue suit. He's wearing a bright red and blue suit. He's got a spit curl. Now, one big Snyderverse fan, Luis Centennial, was boring on Twitter yesterday going, oh yeah, I've seen it now, and I'm so happy that the John Williams theme's not there, or not, blah, 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 blah. It's the Zimmer theme, blah, blah, blah. Well, listen, the leaked image that you lot have seen doesn't really make it clear what's going on there. Now, Luis Centennial, I think he was ill-conceived to admit that he saw an illegal copy of the film, fast-forward it to the ending, and he claims it's the Zimmer theme and not the Williams theme. And I'm not going to go into whether he's right or wrong there. But these kind of conversations bore me, because this guy was so focused on whether the Williams theme was on it or not. And, you know, talking about Snyder's Superman, I hate this term, Snyder's Superman. This morning, I woke up on Twitter and I said, good morning, everyone. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster created Superman. Bob Kane and Bill Finger created Batman, right? Because I hate this fucking term, Snyder's Superman. First of all, the Man of Steel Superman may have been directed by Zack Snyder, but he's actually David Goyer's and Christopher Nolan's Superman. That whole story was David Goyer's and Christopher Nolan's story. Snyder didn't really work on that story. It wasn't Snyder's idea to break Zod's neck. That was David Goyer's. Even Christopher Nolan was a bit concerned about that and needed to be convinced by David Goyer that it was the right thing to do. I personally don't think it was the right thing to do, but anyway, a lot of people defend it. It doesn't trigger me as much as it does other people, but as I said a few days ago, when you want young children and families to sit there, it becomes extremely problematic when you've got a pure-hearted hero, which is what he's been in history, breaking somebody's neck in that way. There were so many ways to deal with Zod in that film and not put Superman in that no-win situation. But that's not what we're talking about today. So Snyder, when he was marketing the Snyder Cut before it was released, said that the Snyderverse, as he called it, he's the one who created the term Snyderverse, is nothing to do with the current DC Extended Universe. He said that his franchise is Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice, and Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. That's its own franchise. He was trying to give the studio an out so he could get his Snyderverse to be a thing, maybe on HBO Max. Here's the problem, Zack. Your Wonder Woman is the DCEU Wonder Woman. Your Aquaman is the DCEU Aquaman. Your Superman, if that's what you want to call it, is the DCEU Superman. Your Batman is, as far as we know, still the DCEU Batman. And then your Flash is the DCEU Flash. So how do you create a reality where those actors are snyders, and he can restore the Snyderverse, but then what happens to the rest of this? You see, you could have easily used Flashpoint to recast all those characters, but that's utterly problematic because you're used to those characters as the DCEU characters, but that's clearly not going to happen here. So how do you restore the Snyderverse and Snyder use his cast in the Snyderverse while then being used in the DCEU as well? I don't understand. I don't see how that can happen. So it's very, very complicated, and this is why I said from the beginning that we should just start DC live action again, because there's complexities there. So there are Snyder fans that are really upset that he's wearing the red suit, but there are Snyder fans who are saying he's Batman, who gives a fucking shit? And most of us are saying we don't care, he's back. The scene was shot beautifully. I think most of us have seen that scene. The idea of him coming out of the fog is absolutely fantastic because this is a character we haven't seen for 5 or 6 years. So that gives him the grand entrance. And what he says is great. You know, the world hasn't been this afraid or scared in a very long time. I think that's what he says. So the point is, the scene is fantastic. I don't think you can fault what the music is or what the dialogue is. So don't forget, the people who wrote that dialogue wrote Black Adam. That says something about them because they actually get DC. This is why now I think the best thing, as long as the box office works out, because if Black Adam isn't a hit, you can't have $7 running DC live action, or at least the DC Extended Universe. They won't have any say-so over the Batman or the Joker. And let's just briefly talk about Todd Phillips. Todd Phillips went to Hamada and Emmerich and said, I want to do this movie, The Joker. I want to do villain stories, character stories. Here's the graphic novel series, Black Label. I want to do a Black Label franchise here on DC Live Action. They said, hold your horses, let's see how this movie does. The movie did really well, and he still didn't get to have this DC Black Label franchise. He's getting a Joker sequel, which is good, but they didn't give him, some keys to a franchise. Now, once someone like Todd Phillips came to me, if I was running WB or DC, I'd be saying, here's the keys to a DC Black Label Studios. This would be before I even saw a script for Joker. This is fucking Todd Phillips. He did the Hangover trilogy. Everybody knows how talented Todd Phillips is. Todd isn't even a DC fan, but he gets the universe. For him to understand Joker so well, there are a lot of references in that Joker film from past graphic novels with Joker in them. So he clearly gets these fucking characters. And these fuckwits didn't give him his own studio, a Black Label studio. You could have given Snyder, an Elseworld Studios. You could have done that, which is what should have happened from the beginning. Snyder should never have been given the keys to a central universe, because that's not the audience that he can attract. But his audience is an Elseworld audience. And, once BVS came back as it did, because, yes, the reaction to BVS is terrible, but the box office is really solid to good without being great because of what the film cost and what the studio wanted. But I think the BVS box office kind of says, yeah, give him a DC Elseworld studio. But these fuckwits just got rid of him. Do you understand? So we're now back to this situation. Now, they could still do that with Zack. They could say to Todd, here's the Black Label studio for you. Here's the keys. Zack, here's a DC Elseworlds studio for you. Now, this is what intelligent people would do. Because with the Batman, with the Snyderverse, with the Joker universe, you've got something that Marvel don't have. You have separate directors making separate versions of these DC characters, which is a huge idea, and it's really good. We saw the money the Batman made and the interest to the sequels and the HBO Max shows. We've seen Joker, Folie à Deux, is going to be a sequel. We're all excited about that. There's no negativity about that. And so these are the kind of decisions logical people make. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes right now. I don't know what's going on and what their plan is. Is there an actual plan? But someone is making decisions somewhere, because someone decided to bring Superman back, and we know it's The Rock and $7 have been pushing for this for 5 or 6 years, for this to be a thing in this movie and to set up the future. So someone kind of decided what costume Superman was going to wear. That wasn't The Rock and that wasn't $7. I think Henry Cavill would have been part of that process, but someone at that studio is still running DC and making decisions. Is it Walter Hamada? Well, considering we've been put into the impression that he doesn't have a future, that's doubtful. That's if he actually doesn't have a future. They didn't allow him to quit over Batgirl. Why is that? If they were getting rid of Walter Hamada, why didn't they just let him quit? Was it because they wanted him to take responsibility for these upcoming movies? To take the plaudits or to take the criticism? However way these movies land, we'll soon find out. But it is very curious and dubious why they didn't allow Hamada to quit. So that's an interesting thing. So they want someone there until they find someone else. The problem is, Zaslav is micromanaging the DC Extended Universe and DC live action in general. So it's not like Hamada has a free reign, but Hamada never had a free reign under Emmerich either. This is why I don't blame Walter for certain situations. When Ray Fisher outed Walter Hamada for defending Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon, but Jeff Johns in particular, he was just doing what his puppet master told him to do. But Fisher decided to expose Hamada. And when you're trying to expose some people as racist, you don't start exposing an Asian man. Because how is he racist? Please explain. And if you're trying to say an Asian man is being racist to African Americans or an African American actor, you have to be detailed in your assertions. There's very little evidence of what Ray Fisher was saying. But Ray Fisher's statements and Zack Snyder's statements were the reason that Ann Sarnoff took Toby Emmerich over to HBO Max, put him in charge, and kiboshed the whole future of the Snyderverse. If Zack and Ray kept their big mouths shut, the Snyderverse would have been restored. Justice League Series 2, Zack Snyder's Justice League Series 2 and Series 3 would have been a thing. And the first Zack Snyder's Justice League would have been Season 1. And we would have been done in the end. He probably wouldn't have gone off to Netflix. But now he is at Netflix. He has got universes and franchises. How does, this is how the Snyderverse fans can't explain it to me. How does he leave that and do this? Now, some of them are saying, oh, his contract runs out. If Rebel Moon's a success and his zombie franchise is a huge success, do you really think he's not going to sign an extension to that deal? And if he does, how can he work with WB? He has got no arrangements with WB anymore, apart from the credits he gets for the DCEU movies, because he set it up. He cast those actors, so he has to. But going back to my central point, this is why I said that DC should just start again. It's the best thing. But nobody listened to me. Nobody ever listens to me. I am just shouting into the stratosphere. It makes me feel better anyway. But no, this conversation isn't over yet. So it's pretty obvious that this is not the Superman of Zack Snyder's Justice League. He isn't wearing black. Maybe he woke up one morning, as someone said to me, and decided to wear red and blue instead of black. That could be a thing. This could be set after Justice League 2 and Justice League 3. Why did he make that point in the post-credit scene about nobody's been afraid on Earth for a very long time? Well, Black Adam comes, 5 years after both Justice League movies, so, or when they were made, but we don't understand the timeline of that post-credit scene. So this is what confuses things a little bit more. Now, this could be a good thing for Snyderverse stands, that he's not wearing the black, but that this is a time jump. a time jump from Justice League 3 away from that. It's been several years. So that could be a thing as well. This could be a Flashpoint Superman. We made all these discussions yesterday. But they could have easily dressed this character in black and said, right, this is it. You know, the Snyderverse is being restored. But, you know, David Zaslav is in a very difficult decision because he hasn't announced that he's resetting the whole franchise again, which would have been a good move. It would have upset Snyderverse stands and some other DCEU stands who like the current DCEU. But it would have been the most pragmatic decision to make. Now, I think they don't have particular plans right now. They're just seeing how these upcoming movies do, and then they'll make their decisions. I think somewhere along the lines, they won't wait for all of them to release. I think Black Adam will be a very important movie. We'll see how the box office does. Next week, we'll find out how the Rotten Tomatoes scores do. I wouldn't expect anything super with that. But reading the reactions, only a few negative ones, most of them were saying, this is a stunning movie. They're going to, look, this is going to be the prefix on Rotten Tomatoes. An action-packed, epic, well-made superhero movie. The Rock rocks. It's awesome. And that's what it's going to say. It's not going to say this is the greatest story ever or anything like that. I think this could just get it over the edge to verify. But we know that once the Rotten Tomatoes score is officially put in there, it's not set in stone. Then other reviews come in and then it can go up and down. And that's the problem. But what matters is that it's verified fresh at the time of release. And we know that's how it works. But I don't think it will be a high, fresh score, but I think it will just about creep into fresh. We'll have to wait and see. But most of the reactions are really, really good. With some saying some of the supporting characters weren't done very well, the humour was cringe. Look, it's all about opinions, and everyone has a right to their opinion. Whether it's saying something from a franchise I want to be successful is not good, or whether it's good or not. That doesn't make you a good or bad person. Everyone is entitled to agree or disagree with you or me without us becoming enemies. That's the whole point of discourse. But from the outside looking in, no, this is not the Superman from Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. They have purposely put him in a costume that looks more traditional. They have given him the spit curl. So, look, what I'm saying to you is that no, they are not going with Snyder's version of Superman. This is another version of Superman. This is from the multiverse. This could be a Flashpoint rebooted Superman so they can use a more traditional Superman. That's the whole point here. So no, they're not going with Zack Snyder's version of Superman. And there's no debate to be had there. You know, you're giving him the spit curl. You made him more traditional looking. So it's obvious where we're going here. But it's obvious that Henry wouldn't have come back without $7 and their hard work. And it kind of shows you that at least with Superman, $7 are going to have a lot of authority to use him. It's clear, even with Zaslav being in charge, that Henry doesn't have much trust, and he never has, for WB. So it looks like he's quite happy to work with $7, but maybe not with WB. We'll have to see about that. But no, this is not the Snyder Superman, and going forward, this will not be the Snyder Superman. It's clear to me this is a Flashpoint Superman, a new era DC Extended Universe Superman. You can either accept that, deny that, be angry about that, or be happy about that. But this is the future. Now, I've already mentioned the Happy and Confused and Sad podcast, or whatever it's called. Is it Josh Horowitz that does that? Well, that lucky sod has booked an exclusive interview with Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill will be doing a few interviews coming up, and he'll be on his Instagram. By all means, I think, definitely, no doubt about that. And he's going to have a few things to say. But in this interview, it's going to be interesting what he says. Because a lot of people are saying, oh, you know, Henry's back, he's in the Flash, he's in this. This could actually just be a one-off. I don't want it to be a one-off, but until Henry and the studio are more outspoken about if there is a future for Henry's Superman, I'm not going to go around and say there is one. I want there to be, but we don't know. And making assumptions isn't good because it gives myself false hope and it gives you false hope. But I hope in those interviews, he doesn't map us out the whole future, but at least says there is a future, there are plans, I know those plans, and I'm not, and I can't talk about them. And that's okay. I'm absolutely fine with that. For me, this whole thing that's come into development in the past few weeks, where we found out that Henry is in a small cameo in Black Adam as Superman after 5 or 6 years, there's nothing negative about that. I am totally positive about this realization. But no, this is not Zack Snyder's universe. This is not his Superman. And it's clear to me we're moving on from Zack Snyder's DCEU. But we will see what happens. And the first place to find out what happens with DC live action is here on Movies TV Mad. This has been Movies TV Mad. I am Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. Until we see each other again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.